Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to my class on statistics. This is our fourth class. And in this class, we'll continue discussion on tabulation of the data. So last class, we were talking about presentation of the data. And when we talk about presentation on the data, we can present the data either by textual presentation, or we can follow tabular presentation, or we can follow diagrammatic presentation, or we can follow graphical presentation. So there are different forms are there how we can present the data. So the presentation of data is required because ultimately whatever analysis we have done and the interpretation what we get from that analysis, we need to tell to the rest of the world, like probably what we have done. Then only the others can understand our calculation, our mathematical mindset. So statistics is all about the research. Whenever we talk about statistics, we perform research, and whenever we are performing research here, the objective of performing research is to get an output of that. So while working on statistical research, we follow descriptive statistics, or we follow inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics is all about working on population. Inferential statistics is all about working on samples. Certain time working on population may not make much sense, in the sense that probably when you work on population, you need lot of time, you need lot of resource. Okay, so probably many times looking into the sensitiveness of the data, we start working our statistical analysis on a sample, and based upon the output what we get from the sample, we try to understand how it would have been if we do population. So we know about descriptive statistics, we know about inferential statistics. So whenever we work on statistics, once we get to know the objective of doing the research, how sensitive is the research, we start collecting data. The data, when we're trying to collect, we talk about primary data, or we talk about secondary data. Primary data we collect by direct observation method, we collect primary data by interview method. Interview method, when we try to collect the data, it can be direct interview, indirect interview, telephonic interview. Okay, it can be through mail questionnaires. So if the enumerator is the person who collects the primary data, if the enumerator is knowledgeable enough to understand how sensitive is the research, based upon that, enumerator try to collect the data, and whenever enumerator try to collect the data, they follow different mechanism to collect the data, looking at the scenario and all. During COVID time, the probably the mail questionnaires would be the better way to collect the data. Plus, we are living in the age of internet. Okay, so every time when we perform a research, we want to restrict our cost. So if we can circulate our primary questionnaires through reliable sources who can give our genuine output, probably then getting data from mail questionnaires would be make more sensible, and that way it would also help us to reduce your cost also. So it depends from what you say, the objective to the objective, depend from economic scenario to scenario. Okay, we can collect the primary data, or we can work on secondary data. Secondary data is basically the data where if somebody else have done the research, we simply try to get the data from them, and we simply try to work on the same data. Only thing we need to very much be sure about the source from where we are collecting this data, we are working on the data. Okay, because the validity of the source, the scrutiny of the data, how sensitively the source, whoever has collected the data, that matters a lot whenever we work on secondary data. Once we are sure about that, we can definitely work on secondary data. Okay, or we can work on the primary data depending upon. So once the collection of the data is done, then we have talked about how we can classify and organize the data. So whenever we talk about classification and organization of the data, we can organize, we can classify them into different groups. It can be quantitative classification, it can be qualitative classification, it can be geographical classification, it can be chronological classification. Each forms of classification have different names. Okay, you have to remember the other names for them also. If you are planning to write any exams like UGC NET, where the statistic questions can come, definitely remembering the names and all will matters a lot. Okay, remember, definitely whenever you work on statistics, you should be very sure about the terms what we use on statistics. In the case of statistics, we can only work on quantitative data. The other name of quantitative data is cardinal data. Okay, so when if we have qualitative data, then we should be in position that we can convert that qualitative data into quantitative data. So statistics can only be worked on numerical values. So whenever we have attributes, we need to convert those attributes into numerical form, into quantitative form. In order to work on statistics, statistics works on aggregate of facts. Statistics cannot work on single data. So if we are working on statistical analysis, we need a lot of data to get. The more data we get, much more better statistical analysis we can perform. So while working on statistics, we need as much data as we can, and more data we get, much more better numerical analysis we can perform, and that way it can give us much more better interpretation of the data. So whenever we look into statistics, whenever we try to perform statistical analysis here, so once the data is being collected, we talked about grouping and classifying the data into different parts. It can be quantitative classification or qualitative classification or geographical classification or chronological classification. So we can divide the data, whatever we collected. Either we can divide those data based upon numbers. Okay, so those numbers like weight, height. So you can organize the data. No? You know how to organize. You can use sort function in Excel. If you have data in MS Excel, you can use sort function. You can organize. You can group the data. You can use pivot table. And while working on pivot table, you can organize the data. So the first thing, whenever you get a raw data, no, so the first thing, if I get the raw data in MS Excel, what I'll do, I'll start using pivot table. So by using pivot table, what I'll do, I'll just try to reorganize the data. So by reorganizing the data, I can group the data into different heads. So I can group the data geographically. I can group the data based upon time period. I can group the data based upon their height, weight, their ethnicity. The different ways are there. We can group and ungroup the data. So classification or organization and classification of data is all about grouping the data either geographically, either on the basis of time period. So on the basis of time period, it can be oldest to newest or newest to oldest, or we can group the data probably on the basis of certain numerical values like height, marks, weight. Okay, we can group the data depending upon their location. Maybe if I'm running a tuition center in Bangalore and if I get the data of all around Karnataka, so I'll try to group the data based upon city wise. Okay, so I'll give preference to those data which are from Bangalore, then to the other places which are little bit away from Bangalore, then to those places which are more away from Bangalore. Within Bangalore, if my institute is in maybe Banchankari, so I'll try to see within Bangalore also which all places people are from. So that way, those who live more closer to Bangalore, their chances of conversion would be more than to those people who live far away from Bangalore. So all these ways I can subgroup the data. Once the classification part is done, then if I have data more organized form, then my analysis would become much more easier. And whenever I try to analyze the data, I can analyze the data on different forms. I can follow univariate data analysis, or I follow bivariate data analysis, or I follow multivariate data analysis. Univariate data analysis is all about working on single array of data. So single array of data, what I have, if I try to analyze that single array of the data, so if I'm trying to analyze that single array of the data, so that is what univariate data analysis is all about. So whenever we do univariate data analysis, we talk in the term of measure of central tendency, measure of dispersion. Measure of central tendency is all about mean, median, mode, arithmetic mean, geometric mean. Measure of dispersion is about standard deviation, quartile deviation, mean deviation, range, correlation. We talk about skewness, curtices. All that is about measure of dispersion. So univariate Data analysis is all about a single set of data, whatever the forms of analysis we can do. That is what univariate data analysis is all about. Bivariate data analysis is all about trying to establish the relationship between two set of variables. So if we are trying to establish a relationship between two set of variables, so there the form of analysis what we follow is called bivariate data analysis. It can be of two form. It can be correlation. It can be regression. Correlation is all about finding the relationship between two independent variable, and regression is all about finding the relationship between two variable where one variable is dependent on the other variable. That is what regression is all about. Multivariate data analysis, I have given the example in the last class where I talked about macroeconomic factors like currency or any other parameters of economics. Okay, so some products which are basically price inelastic products. So if we try to understand the demand pattern of those price inelastic products, so probably that time we follow macroeconomic multivariate analysis on them, and by performing multivariate analysis on them, we try to find the relationship of multiple variables, how much they are impacting a single variable. So, okay, so we know about all of them that whenever you work on analysis part and based upon the analysis what I can do, whatever form of research what I'm working on, ultimately I need to tell the world, right, what all forms of analysis what I did, what all test of hypothesis I have performed. So we'll talk about test of hypothesis. It can be one tail test, two tail test. We will talk about how we can perform a test of hypothesis. Either it can be one mean problem, two mean problem, one proportion problem, two proportion problem, or multiple mean, multiple proportion problem when we do the test of hypothesis on parametric data and non-parametric data. So we follow different techniques like Z test, T test, ANOVA, chi-square. By using these forms of parametric tests, what we try to do, we try to find out the relationship between sample and the population, because ultimately the research what we are doing, if we trying to bring the bridge between the samples and the population. Okay, so like imagine if I have done inferential statistics, and ultimately after performing the inferential statistics, if I'm trying to bridge the link between my samples, the samples whatever I have worked on. So whenever we work on a sample, there's a tendency that the sample may have an error, which we call a sampling error. Okay, so the we to measure the sampling error, we use a formula called sigma by root n, where sigma is the standard deviation of the data. So we follow this sigma by root n. So by using this sigma by root n, okay, n is the number of the data that basically measures the sampling error on the data. So whenever you're working on a sample, there's a chance that you may not have taken the appropriate samples, because you may not have applied the appropriate statistical technique which you were supposed to apply. Because whenever you apply statistical technique, there are a lot of statistical techniques are there: simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, multi-stage sampling, quota sampling. So a lot of sampling techniques are there. Okay, so depending upon different forms of sampling techniques you follow, it may be some sampling technique would be more better than the other sampling technique in certain scenario. So under that mechanism, imagine if I would not have applied the appropriate sampling technique, then there's a chance that I could end up in getting not the exact value which you are supposed to get. So ultimately, there's always a chance when you work on a sample. But again, why we work on a sample? The reason of working on a sample, because we have to save our cost. Whenever we perform research, you know that R&D, research and development cost is very high, and probably developing country like India and all governments, they don't give so much emphasis on R&D. That's why countries like USA, they absorb those those talent from India, and those people perform all possible research in USA. they get all Nobel prizes there, and ultimately they contribute mainly in science and technology. So we are lagging behind in that part. We have labs, but still we need a lot of development in science and technology. So you know the importance of science and technology. You know the importance of research here. So probably whenever we work on research, statistics is all about performing research, and whenever we work on research, there's a chance that we may end up in getting an error, and that error because of not following appropriate sampling technique, that error would be sampling error. And here the analysis, whatever we have done, we need to tell to the world that what form of analysis we have done, so that the others should understand, and they can get an idea about what form of research is being done. So for that we need to present that data, the analysis part, what we have done. We need to present that analysis to the rest of the world. So whenever we talk about the presentation of the data, so the last class we were talking about textual presentation. Textual presentation is like all about a story form. If you try to present to the world whatever work you have done in the form story, then it is called textual presentation, and then it can be tabular presentation. So whenever we talk about presentation of the data, we can follow tabular presentation. So whenever we talk about table, you know, right? If the data is presented in the form of table, so if the data is presented in the form of table, so you know the every table have a heading. Okay, that is a heading of the table. Then the table have a heading of the column, that is called caption. That is called column heading. So the heading of the table is called caption. Okay. Then you have stub. Stub basically means row heading. Stub basically means row heading. Okay. Then you have body part where your content is there. Okay. So your complete content of the table, that would be in body part. Then below the body part, you have footnote. You have footnote, and then you have source note. So footnote basically means like within the body, many times we have used certain terms like suppose miscellaneous, or maybe accrual, something, some English term, or maybe some other term would have used which we want to elaborate. Like if I imagine if I presented profit and loss statement, so and there's a term called miscellaneous. So I'll put a star over that, and in the down in the footnote I'll explain that what that term basic miscellaneous include what all items I'll put there. So that way it become much more clear for our reader to understand. Source node basically means imagine if this if the table or the work, if we have used as primary data, then we don't have to mention the source node. But maybe if we use the 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 data or the table or any values which is being taken from some source, so we need to give credit to that source, because for the copyright issues and other things, we need to make sure that the details should be given, so that we mention the source node. So I hope you have understood this. Okay. So the tabular presentation is much more better way to present the data as per the textual presentation. Okay. The third form of presenting the data is called diagrammatic presentation. The third form is diagrammatic presentation. Diagrammatic presentation, if we are talking about, it can be diagram, it can be line diagram, it can be line diagram, or it can be bar diagram, line diagram, it can be bar diagram, or it can be pie chart. Line diagram, bar diagram, or it can be pie chart. So pie chart, I hope you know that it's like a circular kind of representation, where I hope everyone knows total angle in the circle is 360 degrees. Like this way, try to group the data under the different headings. That is called pie chart. I hope you have seen pie chart and all. Fine. Uh, Pie charts are very common terms. They show you, like you can see this question number 9. You can see. Okay, so you can see this question number 9. Cost of sugar under the head raw material, labor, direct production, and others. The cost of sugar is there. So this is I'm drawing a pie chart of cost of sugar. Okay, so on what factor cost of sugar depends? It depends upon a raw material. It depends upon what? It depends upon raw material. Okay, then it depends upon what? It depends on labor. Okay, so it depends on the labor. Then it depends on direct production. Depends on direct production. Okay, and then it depends upon others. So then the values of them is given. Okay, so with that I can find the total cost. So this is raw material, then you have labor, then you have direct production, and then you have others. Okay, so raw material it is given 12. These all suppose just a artificial data, suppose 12 unit, and then labor is 20 unit, direct production is 35 unit, and others is 23 unit. So if I do the total sum, this is 10, 1 carry, this is 5, 7, 8, 9. Total sum is 90. Okay, so then what I can do, guys, I can find their central angle. I can find the angle. Angle we call it as theta. So I can find the angle. How I can find the angle? I hope everyone understand that if I'm trying to draw the pie chart, then pie chart is a circular representation, and every circle the total angle is 360 degree. Here the total sum is 90. So here the total sum is 90. So the 90 basically means 360 degree. Okay, so it means one basically means what? 4 degree. I hope 9 fours are 36. So the number one means 4 degree. So the 12 means how much degree? 48 degree. I hope you are getting it. 20 means how much degree? 20 fours are 80 degree. 35 means how much degree? 150 degree. 35 fours are 140 degree. 23 means how much degree? 92 degree. And the total sum would be 360 degree. So I can find the angle. So the here the raw material means how much angle? This is 48 degree. I hope basic of maths you know. Labor means how much angle? It is 80 degree. Then direct production means how much angle? Direct production is 140 degree. It should be obtuse angle. It look like acute angle. So let me make it obtuse angle. So obtuse angle means this will be 90 degree. You understand? It should be bigger than that. This is 148 degree, 140 degree, sorry. And then other is basically what? 92 degree. So this should be more than this. This should be 92 degree. 92 degree. So this should be like this should be 48 degree. This should be 92 degree. 90 degree, you know, straight line like this. 1/4. That is 90 degree. 92 will be little bigger. Clear everyone? Anyone, any question? So I hope you understood this past question what we did just now about pie chart. Okay, so we can do one more questions like this. Fine. So let me solve this question. I hope you can pause this video and you can watch this question. You can write this question whenever you want. So I already written down this question in MS Excel. Okay, so do if we I want to take the total sum of this value. What is the shortcut key in MS Excel to do the sum? Alt equal to. So this is the total sum. Okay, these are all the total sum. If I want in currency, I can put currency symbol here. Okay, so shortcut key to insert a row is Alt IR. So let me just give you the heading. Suppose these are the cost. So your total cost, what you're getting, the total cost Alt HI. So the total cost. One minute. So the total cost, what you're getting is equal to 40,000 here. You can see this total cost. Fine. So if I want to convert this in the form of pie chart, So what I need to find, I need to find the central angle. So to find the central angle, what formula will I use? This cost divide by the total cost, fix that cell F4 key. So this will give, you will get the total angle here. So these all are your angle, and you can multiply this all with 100. Okay, you can multiply all this with 100. Okay, so I this value what I get. Fine. So I can this value what I got to convert this angle I got in percentage. I'll multiply this with 360 degree. So if I multiply that with 360 degree, I'll got their central angle. So this is their central angle. If you want, you can convert the pie chart for this data. Okay. So if you want, you can convert the pie chart for this data. Go to insert. Under insert, you have option of pie chart. So how you want pie chart, 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional, you can choose that, and you can just do that. Do data level here. Fine. So this is your pie chart. Clear? Anyone, any doubt? So I hope you understood the construction of pie chart. So pie chart altogether plays very significant role whenever we talk about diagrammatic presentation of the data. After a pie chart, we can use sometime bar diagram also. Whenever we are using bar diagram, mainly we can use two kinds of bar diagram. Okay, so you can use either horizontal bar diagram, or you can use vertical bar diagram. When it comes to using bar diagram, you can use horizontal bar diagram or you can use vertical bar diagram. Okay, so when it comes to horizontal bar diagram, when it comes to horizontal bar diagram, so we use horizontal bar diagram for the qualitative data. We use horizontal bar diagram generally for qualitative data, and we use vertical bar diagram generally for quantitative data. We use generally vertical bar diagram for the quantitative data. Fine. So this is just a general approach. It doesn't mean that you need to follow the same thing. You can do other way also. When it comes to the types of bar diagram, the different types of bar diagrams are there: simple bar diagram, bar diagram, multiple axis bar diagram, percentage bar diagram, subdivided bar diagram. When it comes to line diagram, the different types of line diagrams are there: simple line diagram, multiple line diagram, multiple axis line diagram, logarithmic line diagram. So I'll just show you an illustration for them. Okay, so the different forms of okay the different forms of diagrams here. So what we use here, the different line diagram, simple line diagram, multiple line diagram. So if you see them, you can understand much more better than if I tell verbally. So imagine what is simple line diagram. So suppose this is the data given. So like plot the given data of a production in a single line diagram. So this is the data given, and a single set of variable is there. So like you have divided the time into different quarters, and under each quarter, what is the production, that data if I give you, and if you simply draw a representation of that, so this would be your simple line diagram data. I hope you understood this. Okay. Then when it comes to multiple line diagram, here we, instead of talking about production of a company, okay, we multiple productions we have discussed, like production of east branch, production of north branch, production of west branch, and their values. If we try to do a comparison of the production of different branches, east, west, north, on different quarter wise. Okay, and then if we are trying to analyze it, then it becomes multiple line diagram. I hope you understood this. Any doubt, anyone in till now? So this is multiple line diagram. Okay, so simple thing. These things are very simple. So like when I talk about multiple line diagram, in the case of multiple line diagram, I have taken multiple variables like of the single parameter called production, and different parts of that I have taken east branch, north branch, west branch, and then I measured the production of different branches quarter wise, and then I plotted the graph for that. So this is what multiple line diagram is all about. I hope these all are self-explanatory. You can easily understand. Okay. Then, so we understood simple line diagram, multiple line diagram, then multiple axis diagram. Multiple axis diagram we generally use when we are trying to compare two variables and the values of two variables are somewhat very much different from each other. Like if, suppose if I'm trying to compare Nifty with Infosys share price. So Nifty is a number, and the day when I took this, that day Nifty was trading at 10,000. All the Nifty is right now trading around 18,000. So imagine if I would have invested my money in Nifty, then how much percentage return I would have got. You can easily find it out. So Nifty right now is trading around 18,000 and all. This data I have made around 2020 when Nifty was around 10,000. So it's simply, Infosys share price is a public limited company. So when we study financial management in second semester, we'll understand this in much more better way. So the concept of how IPO and other parameters of the company is being done. Okay, so just checking the stock price or Nifty value. If I get, you can see all the news, everything here. Okay, so if I go to the watch list, if I see the today movement, Nifty is around 18,124. You can see this. Okay, Sensex is around 60,000. Okay, so now coming back to here, so multiple axis line diagram means you are trying to compare two variables and the prices at which they are trading is like is is very much different to each other. Like it's comparing them. If I try to plot the line diagram, if I try to plot the line diagram, you will see how it will get. You will get like this because one is trading in 10,000s. This Nifty is trading in 10,000 and this stock is trading in thousands. So how will you make a comparison between them by drawing line diagram? It doesn't make much sense. So in when we use multiple axis line diagram, so what we do in the case of multiple axis line diagram, we'll create two axes, primary axis and secondary axis. Okay, so we cannot measure both of them on the same axis. Okay, so what I did here, I constructed two axes. Okay, so this is like this is the axis of Infosys, which is around thousands. You can see this. Okay, this is the axis of Infosys. Okay, and here I've written the closing price of Infosys. Here I've written the closing value of Nifty. And then when I'm making comparison, it's making more sense. So here, like if I try to compare gold price with the wheat price. Okay, suppose my teacher is teaching me economics. 1 minute. So what I was talking about like multiple axis line diagram, and I was talking about suppose if I want to compare wheat price with gold price. So my teacher in economics taught me something called price inelasticity of demand, where I'm trying to measure that whenever the gold price increases, then the wheat price decreases something. The demand pattern of people decrease in gold. So probably I want to do some kind of analysis. So for that I have to plot the graph between the price of wheat and the price of gold. Okay, so if I'm trying to do that, what then that wheat is around 20, 30, 40 rupees and gold is around 45,000 rupees. So if you try to plot the graph between them, if you are trying to plot the graph between them, automatically you can understand the two axes would be like if you try to draw them on same axis, how it will become. So there the need of secondary axis come into the picture. So if you have two axes together, okay, so where in one axis you are writing down the price of gold, in other axis I'm mentioning the price of wheat, and then if I do the comparison will make much more sensible. Then we talk about logarithmic line diagram. Logarithmic line diagram generally we follow when we are comparing a variable, when we are trying to plot the relationship of the movement of one variable with respect to the other. And here, imagine the variable is very much dynamic. Means the variable is very much random in nature. Like here, here when I saw the here the graph of Nifty and Sensex when I'm seeing them, you can see the graph is so much variable in nature, it's so much dynamic. So in order to smoothen the curve, what you can do, if you find the log value of the curve, the data, if you find the log value of the data, and then if you plot the curve, it will be much more smoothen, and you will not have too much hiccups in the curve, and then your analysis would be much more better. So I hope you can understand this if you know about logarithm. If your basics on log is not that much good, then probably you can watch my videos on logarithm. So you can go to my YouTube channel. You, you just type logarithm. You'll get a video on log. You just watch the log. You'll understand how we use log. What is natural logarithm? What is common logarithm? Okay, what is the point of introducing the concept logarithm by John F. So John Napier, when he came to discuss about logarithm, so back in the 19th century when scientific calculator, other things were not there. So what was the need of introducing this term log? So you can understand them. So if you go through that. So this is about the line diagram. Okay. Then when we talk about bar diagram, so bar diagram, I told you the two kinds of bar diagram we use. Either they are horizontal or vertical. Horizontal bar diagram generally we use for qualitative data, and vertical bar diagram generally we use for quantitative data. Okay, so here this is what bar diagram is all about. This is the example of simple bar diagram. Okay, then this is multiple bar diagram. Simple bar diagram means you took one variable into picture. The variable was population. Okay, and different cities is given. Okay, city like A, B, C, D. Some cities have simply have written. Just don't take it so much seriously. Just some random city name and the population in crores. Some values are given. And what I can do, I can plot the representation in this form of rectangular axis. This is what bar diagram, simple bar diagram is all about. Here I've taken one variable called population, and I measured in different city. Multiple bar diagram, like if I've taken multiple countries name, and I just checked the values of the import and export. Okay, so each country the values of export and import. And here, if you see the in the form of graph, so this is the example of this is the example of your multiple bar diagram. I hope you're getting it. So I've written down different countries like India, Japan, Australia, France, the values of the export import. Other I have written them. I hope you people know basics of accountancy and all. You know about BOP, balance of payment. So every country, in order to measure the money what they're receiving, the money what they're earning, or the money what they're paying. So every country maintains a double entry bookkeeping record, which they keep, then which they call as BOP, balance of payment. So this by BOP include different entries like balance of current account, balance of capital account, official reserve account. So balance of current account include different terms like balance of trade. It includes invisibles like unilateral transfers like remittance. It includes travel, tourism, and other things. So all the money which come into the country is put under credit side of the BOP account, and all the money which go out of the country is put under the debit side of BOP account. Okay, and that there in BOP account we have something called balance of trade. Balance of trade play a very important role in balance of current account, and there we talked about import and export for the country. So every country will make sure that they should have a balance of trade surplus situation. To understand balance of trade surplus situation, your export should always be more than your import. So if you are the country where you have export more than import, then it would be good for your economy in the long run. Okay, those kind of countries who simply imports a lot, for them they have to pay a lot of money. Automatically, the currency will always be then in the weaker position, and the economic development of the country would go on toss. But even then, USA is the world largest importer. But even then, USA maintains such a huge BOP with respect to the other countries. The reasons are very different. For that, your basic knowledge of accounts, economics, international finance should be improved. So when we'll discuss this in next year, if I teach you finance, that time I will explain you how USA after Second World War always maintained a low or a deficit balance of current account. But even then, USA is the world largest developed economy in the world. What is the economic policies of USA? We'll discuss about all of this probably in the future. So here I was talking about multiple bar diagrams. Here I was talking about different countries, the values of the exports and imports. I hope you understood this. Then this is subdivided bar diagram. So subdivided bar diagram, same thing. Like the way we discussed about multiple bar diagram, subdivided bar diagram, and then you have percentage bar diagram. More or less, we do the same work. In percentage bar diagram, the values are written in the form of percentage, but in the case of subdivided bar diagram, your values will be written. I hope you see this. This kind of representation is called subdivided bar diagram. Okay. This form of representation is called subdivided bar diagram. So this way. Yeah. So you can draw pie chart also for these kind of terms, or you can draw subdivided bar diagram. But pie chart you can do on one variable, different components of one variable. Here you have multiple variables, multiple components. So pie chart will not look better. Here subdivided bar diagram, or the same thing, if you convert this into percentage, the same values I convert it into percentage. And then if I plot the diagram, it look much more clear in picture. So this is called subdivided bar diagram, or if it represented in our percentage, we call this as a percentage bar diagram. Clear everyone? Anyone have any question? Please ask me. So today in this class, we have discussed about a presentation of data. We discussed about textual presentation, tabular presentation, a diagrammatic presentation. We discussed about line diagram, bar diagram, pie chart. Any doubt, any question, if it's there in your mind, please free to ask your questions. Okay, next class we'll discuss about graphical presentation of data. Before we'll discuss about graphical presentation of data, the different forms of graphical presentation is the frequency, polygon, okay, then histogram, all that we'll discuss about them, ogive. So before that, we need to explain the frequency distribution of data. Either they are basically, if they are in the form of exclusive class intervals, or they follow inclusive class interval, what is the concept of frequency. So we need to discuss about them. If we can understand them, then plotting them in histogram or ogive or finding cumulative frequency will become much more sensible to us. Any question, anyone, please ask me before I'll conclude today's class. So gradually, also we need to work on the basic our mathematical abilities. Okay, so we have to be good with basic mathematical abilities to understand the concept statistics. So we have done a couple of problems in the last class. Okay, and we have discussed also today class the basic idea of drawing, how to draw a pie chart. If you have any question in your mind, please ask me. You can do this question as a homework. Okay, these two questions, I'm just copying it, or you can take a photo of these two questions, third and fourth. Everyone, please do this question as a homework. Let me know if you have any doubt. You can post your answer in your group. Solve these question number 3 and 4, and take the photo of this and post the solution of this question, answer for this question in the group. Clear everyone? Any doubt, any question? Anyone? Thank you, everyone. I hope you have understood whatever I did in this class. So, with that intention that whatever I have done, you have understood, it's time to say goodbye to all of you. I'll see you all very soon tomorrow for the next class. Thank you, everyone. God bless you. Bye, everyone.